You should both listen to Cam Cole's most recent album because no, don't do it while you're driving.
Cam who?
Why?
Cam Cole. He's well, I really like it and stuff like that because it's good driving music.
But you just said not to do it when you're driving.
Yeah, well, no, but the problem is that when I do it when I'm driving, I do burnouts because it's like that old-fashioned kind of like aggressive rock and roll. And I had a fucking long day at work today, and as I left the car park, this is okay to do because it's private property and I work for Millbrook and technically they don't have CCTV, so they can't see me doing it. I did a donut before I left, to this meeting.
Is it legal for them to reprimand you based off of security footage?
Well, it would be, Sean, if my company had security cameras.
Which means Gavin only allegedly did burnout in the park.
Because that's interesting, because you're not allowed to do that in Canada. Like, regardless if they catch you like walking around with your phone doing absolutely nothing and it's on video camera, they can't reprimand you for it because it's technically like it never happened because the only way you could see that was because of technology. So they don't allow it.
The only way I know this is because there's a big thing in the UK at the moment which is called business park racing, which is basically in the UK they have these places which are now completely empty where they're just like warehouses, but the upstairs of them will be offices and the downstairs will be like a business or something like that. And they're not places people go and visit. They're just like engineering and they make stuff or their radio station. And they're basically, from as soon as you come off the public road, that 2-3 miles of networks of roads and all that kind of stuff, because all these places have put barriers on, they put barriers on so they can close them, that's private land. So you can do whatever you want on private land with the permission of the landowner. So you can turn up a roundabout and start power sliding and drifting and driving as fast as you want around these business parks, and the police just have to sit at the edge and can't do anything.
Well, because they have no jurisdiction. Yes, I'm just gonna say welcome to Better Luck Next Week, everyone, because this is where we're gonna start for real. It was the trade deadline on Monday in the NHL, and that's what we're gonna lead with this time. I know we normally start with Formula One and/or NFL, but it's just a Grand Prix this weekend, and there's absolutely nothing going on in the NFL except Julian Edelman retiring, which we'll touch on briefly as we transition from the NHL to Formula One. However, there's a big trade deadline, lots of big trades, lots of little trades as well. And we're going to go through each of the Canadian teams after we kind of touch on the big trades and give them a letter grade because there's some Canadian teams that did very well and other Canadian teams that did absolutely nothing. So we'll touch on all of those. But first, we obviously have Sean Sennett back with us again.
Hello.
And he's
still
haven't got his immature name up there, but that's fine. And he's a Red Wings fan, as you can see. So we might as well start with the Anthony Mantha trade.
The eyes are playing.
Yeah, well.
Let's go.
So Anthony Mantha goes to the Washington Capitals in exchange for a large package of Jacob Vrana, Richard Panik, a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2022 second-round pick.
That is correct. I think at this point, Detroit has 12 picks, I think, in total or something like that.
In 2021, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's like the most amount of any team, which is great. It means Yzerman is ready to rebuild, which is fantastic. At least
yes. Now, to me, the Wings selling Mantha, and this has been thrown around by some other experts as well, the Wings selling Mantha is almost like them thinking or discussing that the Wings rebuild is going to take a little bit longer than they anticipated because Mantha is under contract for another 2 seasons after this one. So he would have been he's up in 2023, I believe, which, to not want to have him here for the remainder of his contract and then potentially have to re-sign him may indicate that their rebuild's going to take a few more than those 2 years on top of it. I mean, mind you, the haul for Mantha itself is probably the best haul in this entire trade deadline. I mean, you got a first and a second. Richard Panik,
he's a charmer.
Panik is going to be part of the the bottom six, maybe. Probably higher up the lineup based on
all the players
the Red Wings lineup. And then Jacob.
Don't know what the lineup was.
And then
he was on the third line.
Yeah. Okay. So he's probably going to move up or down depending on how well he plays on the third line. And then Jacob Vrana, who already has 2 goals or a game-winning goal in last night's game?
Yeah, Jacob Vrana scored the game-winning goal yesterday, coming out of the penalty box with a nice feed from Lindstrom, who's also a new addition to our team. So it's good to see that the young guys have the mindset to throw the puck up the middle. They know where their guys are going to be, regardless of how new they are to the team. I think Jacob Vrana is such a great trade for Mantha because it looks like Vrana is actually willing to play hockey, where Mantha was just kind of seeming like he was a log on the ice who didn't contribute to anything defensively. Even offensively, he was just kind of like standing around. He's got the positioning and everything, but his I don't know what his giveaways were, but watching him made me want to gouge my eyes out. Because you just signed this guy for what, $4.4 million a year, something like that, for 4 years, and then does absolutely nothing for the team.
Right.
He scores goals, but that doesn't mean anything if you can't back check. I really don't care. And our team needs help defensively, and I think he knows that. And so if you're not going to be willing to help, in terms of back checking, then I don't want you. And I've been saying this ever since the start of the season. I've told Jared 1,000 times that I hope that Mantha gets traded because you can leverage, his goal scoring abilities in a good way, and that's exactly what Yzerman did. And I think it's a smart play, especially for the haul that they got for him. It's just, I don't know, Wings win. I just think that's such a great dude for a rebuild, and plus he's got a cup. So I mean, who doesn't want a Stanley Cup winner on their team? To give a little bit of advice to the kids who maybe haven't played in the playoffs yet. So you get that going forward as well.
Well, and it's a bit like the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation where he kind of stopped trying in Columbus so that he would get traded. And now he's doing better in Winnipeg, and Patrick Laine is floundering under the coaching of John Tortorella because Tortorella is trying to make Patrick Laine into Nick Foligno, who he just lost. And right. Patrick Laine very much is not Nick Foligno.
Right. But just correction. Yeah. Panic is on the third line with Mestikov, with Gagne. So
it's almost like Bill Belichick trying to make people that work the checkout counter at Sears Hall of Fame
into wide receivers. Yeah.
Well, I understand the perspective now. It's people not understanding what person they've got in front of them and the level of talent that person has and utilizing that.
Right. You're just putting guys in the wrong situations. And so, I mean, for Mantha, he was being used in the right situation, but he just didn't want to be there. So he stopped trying. And so, I mean, that's at least how I see it.
I'll never understand why coaches do that. It doesn't make sense to me. I can only obviously talk about sports and stuff like that I know. But my favorite one was the Browns drafted Myles Garrett, who was an edge rusher, had been an edge rusher his entire career and was a really good edge rusher at college, and then brought him into their team and said, you're going to be a center rusher. And he was like, I've never done that before, and had an awful first 6 games. I was like, why would you change what he did? If you bring a hockey player in and he's a big bruiser, fighty kind of guy, then let him go off and be big, bruisey and fighty. But if you bring a guy who's more of a skilled, fast player that contributes in different ways, let him do what he's good at instead of trying to force him to do things that evidently, from what you're saying, he's not very good at.
Yeah, that's the Patrick Laine situation in Columbus, which we can get to because Columbus was big sellers. And that leads to the next trade, which was the Nick Foligno trade. I mean, before we get to that, Sean, you already think that Detroit wins this trade. I think Detroit wins this trade long term, maybe not right away, because Mantha's already been an impact player for the Washington Capitals.
I think that also speaks volume to the team and the line that he's on. I think
absolutely,
like they're already in the running for, going far in the playoffs at this point.
Washington's top 6 is stacked. Basically, every
Mantha's
team
never
that's
played
trying to compete is their top 6s are stacked, right?
Yeah, Mantha's never played in the playoffs, so that's also another thing that's to watch out for. So while we get a goal scorer, who's is having a better season than Mantha, obviously it depends on the team, but obviously Vrana can prove that he's a goal scorer regardless of what the team is. He's playing his position well, and he's definitely giving us what we need.
And Vrana also in his career has actually had a higher expected goals and higher scoring pace than Mantha in his career.
Right.
Which, Vrana's career is a couple years shorter than Mantha's, but by only a couple years, if that.
Right. And here's the thing: we're talking about just Vrana and Mantha this whole time. We haven't really talked about Panic except for him being on the third line, what kind of role he plays. We haven't talked about the first round pick. We haven't talked the first round pick 2021. Haven't talked about the second round pick 2022. And so those are all like bonuses that Detroit has got.
Detroit has 2 first round picks now in this upcoming draft, which are kind of crapshoots, unfortunately, which, I've been advocating for Detroit to keep losing and have the best chance at getting the first overall pick. But even if they don't get the first overall pick, you could still take a shot in the dark in this draft and end up with a star at like 25th overall, which is probably whereabouts Washington's pick will be, if not even lower. So...
I think if it was done today, they would have got 30th overall. I think I did this little online lottery thing, and it was like, oof. But you know what? Detroit's always done well with those kind of players anyway, and the development for those guys has been pretty damn good as well. So
let's move on to the Foligno trade now, which is the Maple Leafs acquiring basically exactly what they need. They can use Foligno as a third-line center, a second-line left wing, because the Leafs on the left side have been depleted even before they traded Andreas Johnsson. Trading him depleted it even more, but it had to be done because Johnsson probably isn't actually worth $3.2 million. And based on how he's played in New Jersey, it's either fair or too high of value. But this is one of 2 3-team trades on this list of big 4 trades. So the Leafs sent a first and a fourth to Columbus.
How does a 3-team trade?
Yeah, let me get there. So what happened is the Leafs sent a first and a fourth to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Okay. The Columbus Blue Jackets then sent Nick Foligno's contract to the San Jose Sharks so that the San Jose Sharks could retain some of his cap hit. And subsequently, then the Leafs acquired Nick Foligno from the San Jose Sharks and Stefan Noesen as well from the Sharks. Or Nason, apparently it is, even though it's absolutely not how it's spelled. I don't know. Sometimes it's very confusing, but Moesen apparently makes Nason. He's not North American. He's, I believe, Scandinavian.
He's from Texas.
Yeah. Don't get into that. So, but then the Leafs sent a 4th round pick to the Sharks for Nason, and the retention of cap for Nick Foligno when they got him from the Sharks. So that's how a 3-team trade works. You use a second team. Yeah, there's a couple of the David Savard trade that we'll get to as well from Columbus is another 3-team trade, which involves the Red Wings actually.
That's it.
But so the way they do that is you make a deal with a second team to have them retain some of the cap hit of this big player, and you give them something in return, like the Leafs did, a 4th round pick. They also got Stefan Nason from the Sharks, so the Sharks are obviously selling and getting a 4th round pick out of this as well for a player and a bit of cap space.
Can I just say there's also another 3-team deal that happened, but it was imaginary, and it was the Buffalo Sabres giving up Taylor Hall for absolutely nothing. I think they thought it was a 3-team deal they were getting, and
it might have been. We'll get to that. That's our next one. That's our next one. So the Leafs acquire Foligno and Nason for 3 picks. Ultimately, is the trade a first. The 2021 4th and 2022 4th. This, among all the other trades the Leafs made, they acquired David Riddick, the goaltender from the Calgary Flames, for a 3rd round pick. They acquired Ben Hutton from the Anaheim Ducks for, I believe it was a 5th. Let me just find it here. Yep, a 2022 5th. So they sold off a bunch of picks both this season and next season, which means that these next 2 years are go-for-it years for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if I am correct as well, I believe they have Foligno for next year because his contract is a 2-year deal, which if I can see, no, it's not. Okay, so he's a UFA next year, but they have the ability to re-sign him if they want to. There's a bunch of guys they still have to re-sign. Jason Spezza, if he wants to come back, probably take another $700K contract because he's awesome. But the Leafs have loaded up, and Nick Foligno is going to address, like I said, the kind of gap on the left side. If they want to keep Galchenyuk up on the first line with Matthews and Marner, they can, because they can cycle Zach Hyman up there like they've been doing as well throughout the game. And then the second line is a bona fide line of Foligno, Tavares, and Nylander if they want. Or they can have Foligno drop down to the third line center slot, which is nasty depth of Matthews, Tavares, Foligno down the middle. And who cares on the 4th line? Because who cares? But you'll probably go with, the third line of Mikheyev, Kerfoot, Hyman, which is also not a fun line. Basically, the Leafs have acquired a guy that's going to make them even less fun to play against.
Yeah, well, and I'm just looking at some stats right now of Nick Foligno's power play. And he's a guy they can use on the second power play unit for sure. Take Jumbo Joe,
which they need to
up there. Yeah, the second power play unit is suffering hard, but even the first power play unit can't get anything done.
Was because whenever they can't do something. I mean, last night Matthews was out of the lineup, which they lost to who were they playing? Calgary? I don't even remember. No, it was Winnipeg. Sorry, they lost. But they they took obviously Matthews out of the lineup, so they put Tavares on the first unit, and then they had Wayne Simmons out there a little bit. I think Jason Spezza was on the first unit a couple of times, and then Joe Thornton is still on the first or second unit depending on how they're feeling. And I'm like, why do we have the retirement home on the power play?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
Right. And that's Foligno definitely brings a lot of good things to the power play.
Yeah. Now he's a year older than Wayne Simmons. And so I'm not necessarily grouping Simmons into the retirement home group, but I mean, 37-year-old Jason Spezza and 41-year-old Joe Thornton both haven't had the greatest stretch over the last week or so. Spezza was doing well last week, kind of tapered off a bit this week, but I mean, the guy's 37, and Joe Thornton, I think, has only missed games due to injury and not because he's old and should sit out, whereas Spezza took one of the back-to-back games off earlier on in the week, which I'm kind of
Spezza did have a pretty sick assist on the Tavares goal.
That is fair. That was last night's game. That was very good because Spezza is elite. I know I've been ripping on him a little bit, but he is elite. Joe Thornton needs to pick it up a bit, but the guy's 41. So that concludes that. Foligno and all the other ads that the Leafs have done.
Spezza being on the Spitz, man.
Spitz, Ottawa
Love it.
Senators legend. We love to
Yep.
see it.
Yeah, it's great. Plus
right.
on Nick Foligno, like they have another leader on the team. Like they have 4 former captains, or current captains on one team.
Tavares, Foligno, Thornton, and Spezza were all captains at some point. Yeah,
which is great.
So lots of leadership,
and they all have some solid playoff experience.
Yeah,
as well. So.
Foligno a little bit less, but Foligno was part of the group of the Blue Jackets who swept the Tampa Bay Lightning in that series after going down in game 1. I think it was 3-0 they were down after the first period, and then they never looked back and swept the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round of the playoffs.
Well, he's also another fundamental take no shit kind of guy that the Leafs need, because you can't just rely on Simmons for all of that. So you have a little bit of that in a few guys, and you stop people from screwing with you.
And they've been encouraging like Zach Hyman and Justin Hall to kind of also have that same mentality. And then they've thrown in guys like Scott Sabrin in a couple of games just to be a little bit more of a bruiser. So we'll come back to the Leafs in our breakdown of each of the Canadian teams, but let's go with Taylor Hall now. And I totally agree with what you're saying, because the Buffalo Sabres don't seem to understand that you need players on your team who can play, but also will be there for more than the rest of this season. The trade was Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar.
Yeah, which nobody talks about. Nobody talks about like the actual trade, but it's just like, Taylor Hall, 2nd round pick. This is terrible, and you're like, well, I mean, it's not the full trade, but also the full trade I think looks worse than if you
the full trade absolutely looks worse. Oh, this was also at midnight on.
Dude, Anders Bjork.
Yeah.
So Curtis Lazar and Taylor Hall, man.
Yeah. So Anders Bjork and a 2nd round pick for Taylor Hall. Excuse me, and Curtis Lazar. And Anders Bjork, by the way, who had been scratched for the subsequent 5 previous Boston Bruins games up until that point. What are you doing here?
Not great. Because I mean, like Curtis Lazar and Anders Bjork, you could have probably done a trade with just like those guys. Taylor Hall, you could have got way more from, because I mean, like Lazar's what's going on, man? Like,
Lazar
he's such a staple for the World Junior team with Canada, and then just join the NHL, and like I don't know if he doesn't know what his role is, or if he doesn't know where he fits in on certain teams, or if it's just because he's moved around so much that he can't find his like footing. But now he's I don't know. And then Anders Bjork, he's fairly new to league, and he's also not doing a whole lot.
Well, no, like I said, he'd been scratched for the 5 games prior to this trade for the Bruins.
Man, he's played 2. Oh no, sorry, he's played 32 games this season.
Yeah, he's 24 years old. He's okay. He's a depth guy on most teams. Now, what is good is that he's signed through 2023 and then is an RFA. This is what Buffalo has to do more of. I'll get back to Taylor Hall in a second, but Buffalo has Sam Reinhart, who is an RFA after this season, Victor Olofsson, who is an RFA after next season, Bjork, who's an RFA after 2023, Tage Thompson, who's an RFA after 2023, Arttu Rustalainen, who's an RFA after next season, Dylan Cousins, who's going to join the team, Casey Middlestat's an RFA, Rasmus Asplund, who's an RFA, Rasmus Dahlin, RFA, Henry Jokiharju, RFA, Jacob Bryson, RFA. So you can negotiate with these guys to try and stay. However, you're strapped in with Jeff Skinner at $9 million for eternity, a guy who was scratched a few times. You're strapped in for the next 3 seasons with Kyle Okposo for $6 million. Sam Reinhart's going to want to raise because now he's the only player performing on your team right now because Jack Eichel is out for the rest of the season. Olofsson's going to want to raise in a couple of years because he's the only other player who's performing on your team. And then who else is there? You've got a bunch of guys who don't want to be there, who are miserable. You just need contracts, and they're not getting contracts. They're not even getting value for Taylor Hall.
Right. They got, did you mention Middlestat as well?
Yeah.
I mean, Cousins, they could, they kind of need him to step up. I didn't know they had, I didn't know they got Sheahan.
Well, Cousins is just started.
That's kind of interesting.
Cousins has just started. But Riley Sheahan is a UFA after this season. And you think he's going to want to go back there? Absolutely not.
Oh, absolutely not. Well, when you go from, he played on Detroit. Yeah. When you go from Detroit and then you end up in Buffalo, kind of feel bad for you, man.
Yeah. You're just going from one shit team to the next. It's just not good enough.
Granted, he started, in Detroit in 2010, 2011. So you got a lot of the good flavors of the team still. But shit,
Yeah. And then you've got goaltenders who are UFAs. Carter Hutton and Linus Ullmark are both UFAs. You want to hang on to Linus Ullmark because he's the third player on your entire team who has performed. Cousins, I don't think, has been in the lineup for most of the season, which is fine because I would absolutely shelter that poor kid from this travesty.
Right. No, that's for sure. That's a thing. And I think it's kind of what they have to do at this point.
Yeah. Jack Eichel,
possible.
Jack Eichel even wants out, and then they've also got Zemgus Girgensons, but I mean, he had one good season and then just became unheard of. Mm-hmm. So, I just don't understand why this is the haul you got, but at the same time, they were handcuffed by Taylor Hall because Taylor Hall said, I only want to go to the Boston Bruins because they gave Taylor Hall a no trade clause. So in signing Taylor Hall, who you knew was going to be a trade piece, you then gave him a no trade clause, which allowed him to pick where he wanted to go. He only wanted to go to Boston, and that's all that Boston was willing to offer you for him. What a train wreck.
Did they know that he was just
he signed for 1 year on the horrific Buffalo Sabres.
Was it just to save face, just like a PR move to get fans interested still in going to games? I mean, didn't work out anyway because COVID. Hey, what's up? But.
Well, and even when Buffalo was like, oh, we're going to open up to some fans, all the season's ticket holders were like, we don't want to go.
Yeah, no, I hear there's a lot of people that are just like,
yeah, your team's garbage. We don't want to go see this absolute dumpster fire.
Right.
And, I feel bad for Kevin Adams, but at the same time, I don't, because of how you handled this entire situation. Why are you giving a player who signs for 1 year a no trade clause? Why are you giving Taylor Hall that kind of leverage? Because all it's going to do is bite you in the ass. And that's exactly what happened. You're telling me you couldn't get a first round pick for the first overall pick of Taylor Hall back in, what was that, 2015?
It's kind of a dumb situation when you allow a player the ability to select where they want to go. Because evidently, if the team that he's going to knows that that's the situation that they're in, they're going to just fuck the other, because it's a lose-lose situation for the team that's got that player.
Right.
It's like the Deshaun Watson situation at the moment. Texas know he wants out, but they can't find anyone for him. It's the same thing with this kid. They know he wants out, so if they don't send him where he wants to go, then he's just going to not play. So You've basically got to go to someone going, we know, it's like going to the guy that's stealing your girlfriend and going, I know she's already left me, but I'll trade you some things for her. And the guy's like, he's already coming our way. Like, if he just doesn't play for a year, then he's going to end up with us in a year's time. Fine, we can deal with that. And it's like, we'll give you some crumbs off the edge of the table just to kind of make you feel less bad about the situation you're in. But
that's why you give modified no trade clauses or no move clauses to players who are going to be with your team for a while, right? Like, you've got obviously Jack Eichel, who's your star centerman at $10 million forever. He should have a no trade or a no move clause because you think that he's going to stick around with you. What is motivating you to give a no trade clause to a player who signed with you for one season? You're a bad team.
I don't really understand the fundament. I think if it was me, I wouldn't give anyone a no trade clause. Like, if someone turned around and was like, I want a no trade clause, I'd be like, well, no, because at the end of the day,
well, the argument there is that it's job security.
Well, yeah, but the problem is that if you want job security, don't be a professional athlete. Part of being a professional athlete is the fact that you could wake up tomorrow morning and find out that you are going to a different team. That's what you sign up for.
Text from Iserman saying, "Call me ASAP."
That's a problem in sports, and specifically in hockey, is that hockey and the NHL do not care about your personal life. And it's really an issue, in my opinion, because you've got guys like Anton Forsberg, who's a goaltender for the Ottawa Senators right now, who was claimed off waivers 5 times. And that's no fault of his. It's just that he's the third goaltender on a lot of teams. He has to be placed on waivers to go to the taxi squad and or the minors so that he can play games. And teams just kept plucking him off waivers. And now he's in Ottawa. He started in Edmonton. He was claimed by Carolina, Winnipeg, Edmonton, then Winnipeg again, and now Ottawa. And it's like it's stupid. I can
completely understand your point, but I think it's one of those things, Jared, that just comes with the territory. That's something. You don't do the thing. Okay, yeah, sure. I think there's some players and stuff like that go, I'm going to buy a house here. I'm going to live here for a long period of time. But I think the smart thing to do is the same thing that JJ Watt did, which was he bought a house in wherever he bought a house in. And then, he had a small home in Texas, but with the best one in the world, it was always under the pretense that if you got traded, you just rent that house out now and you find somewhere else to live.
Yes, but JJ Watt can afford that because he's getting $17 million a year. These guys don't get that kind of money. Most of the Buffalo Sabres players right now get paid less than $3 million a year. They can't afford to do that. And that's why they get these no move clauses and no trade clauses for the bigger players, because, at least when you're making a little, you give that job security to a player who's a better player on the team, because you think, okay, this guy's going to be here for a while, so we're going to make sure that he's going to be here for a little while and give him that security that he's going to be here for a little while and he can go and be comfortable here. But that security doesn't exist for most depth, lower line players because they get bounced around all the time and they can't afford to do that kind of stuff. And that's what sucks for me. I think there needs to be more of a consideration for these guys' personal lives, and the fact that, especially in a time like right now, where you've got a pandemic, you've got a quarantine. Anton Forsberg quarantined for 14 days 3 times because he was claimed by an American team twice. So he was preparing to go to the States, quarantine, then got claimed by the Canadian team again. So quarantined and came back and then got claimed again. Like, that's ludicrous. And there has to be some sort of limitation where you can only claim someone off waivers so many times, because obviously this guy is not a starting goaltender in the NHL, and he's a borderline backup. So obviously he's going to get put on waivers, especially by a team who claims him, who already has 2 goaltenders. Or maybe you put a restriction. If you have 2 goaltenders and you're going to claim a guy and then put him on waivers again, you're not allowed to claim him or something. I don't know. We're getting off topic.
Maybe it's just the thing where if you claim someone, you then like you can only do certain things to certain people over like a certain amount of times over the course of the year. Like I can't remember who it was in the NFL, but like there was one guy that got traded between like 4 different teams in like 6 different months. Like he was just like a coin. Like they just like, oh, we'll give you.
He's the token trade piece in every trade.
Like, you need this. Okay, we'll pass him across.
Yeah,
and
we'll throw this guy in to up the value a bit.
Yeah. So I think like maybe allowing them to be claimed once a year or traded once a year, just so that guys don't like. I think as a professional athlete, you have to kind of be ready for that kind of situation. Like it's going to happen. Sorry, you're going to get traded. But I can understand that maybe it happening 6 times in a year is not very fun.
Yeah. So
I don't know. You kind of just like keep living in the same house, and you call the team. You say, "Hey, fly me to wherever you need me to be to play. I'll play tonight, and then I'm going back home."
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just
get a private jet for me.
Dude, Mantha was in Raleigh,
North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the Hurricanes play.
And he got a call from Yzerman. It was a pregame nap. Got a call from Yzerman. Missed the call. And then woke up to a text saying, "Call me ASAP." And then Yzerman was like, "Yo, you're going. Bye-bye. Have fun in Washington." And then he hopped in a limo, took a 4-hour drive, got dinner on the way, and played for Washington.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how that went. Like, imagine that.
The thing for me that I think about, and as much as look like the players and all that kind of stuff I get, but just think about how much that's just cost whichever team had to pick him up. Because you've got to hire a limo to drive at least 8 hours, because even if it's based in the city he's in, it's got to drive 4 hours and then drive 4 hours back, or it's got to drive from the city 4 hours and pick him up and drive 4 hours back. So that's a guy.
Chump change for these guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to.
It's like $1,000.
Yeah, it's a lot for us, but I don't think they care. He probably picked up like some steak and caviar.
Yeah, he probably got the keg on his way down.
Yeah, why not, right? But going back to sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking. I heard a story about stupid money being spent. Back in when I used to work in motorsport and stuff like that, I was speaking to a couple of guys who worked at Ferrari back in the days of Michael Schumacher, and they were telling me that obviously they were based in the UK. They were based in the UK, and they had a guy making wings. Like his job was to make wings. And basically they came up with like Thursday morning or something like that. They came up with this wing, and he made it all day Thursday, and it wasn't ready by the time everyone was flying out. So he got told to collect all the battery powered tools he could that he needed to make a wing. And they basically put him on a private jet, which they'd covered in polythene, the inside of it in polythene. And for the 8-hour flight, he made the wing.
Wow.
The funny part was he landed, presented the wing, and the setup engineer who had asked for it went, "Actually, we don't want that now."
Come on.
He decided against it. So yeah, he was there.
You get paid. You're fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like being an actor in a film. You could do like 5 scenes that get cut. Oh well.
Yeah,
you're paid to do things.
It's like how much money gets thrown down the drain with this stuff. Because like, okay, the limo driver, that's probably what £5,000 because it's last minute. Then the equipment guy's got to get him a whole new set of pads, whole new set of jerseys, whole new set of skates, whole new set of sticks, and all that kind of stuff. Like,
well, not quite that bad. The sticks and skates and under pads will stay the same. It'll be jersey. Helmet. It'll be jersey, helmet, socks, and pants.
You telling me he takes the stuff from one team to another?
I'm talking about the stuff on the inside. So like his shoulder pads, his shin pads.
I guarantee that's brand new every team.
No, it's not, Sean. Too. It's not, Gav.
Yeah. No. These guys, hockey players are weird. So they will literally
like their
stick with
own
the same equipment since day one. Like they will wear the same stuff since the inception of the NHL to when they retire sometimes.
And
there are guys that wear stuff from like 15, 20 years ago.
And
Still.
but some of them love brand new stuff, some of them don't, right? So like it depends. But I mean, if your skates aren't the team colors, you know, you'll probably keep the same pair of skates that you wore in yesterday's game for tomorrow's game, just because you got traded to another team, whatever, right? You're going to use the same sticks because a lot of players get custom made sticks now that are custom to them. So you're going to keep the same sticks, right? You're going to get new gloves because the gloves are going to be different colors. You're going to get new pants because the pants are going to be different colors, and a new helmet because the helmet's going to be a different color. But like the shoulder pads underneath the jersey, probably the same shoulder pads you've worn for the last 5 years or less. You know, shin pads the same.
Okay.
You know.
Because the only thing was, I googled how much it costs to outfit an NFL player. Like if any of us walked into an NFL equipment room right now to be ready to play a season, like everything they would have to give us to go for the season, it's something ridiculous, like £46,000 of kit.
Yeah, but that's professional. That's professional grade.
That's not good.
That's a professional grade gear.
Hello?
Right? So, Gavin's having internet problems. Let's move on because we got wildly off topic after discussing how terrible the Buffalo Sabres have been and general
just
trading.
on that for a second though. So he's second line left wing. Their defensive pairing, the second defensive pairing is terrible.
Who's they? Buffalo?
No, Boston. So you got Mike Riley, Connor Clifton on the second D.
Yeah, Boston's
Taylor Hall is
had
like
a
career minus.
Yeah,
dude, he's just he's a one-way guy. I mean, like, you know what? That's fine. You get paid to snipe, score goals. That's all good. But like, also, come on, man, you're minus 65 in your career, dude. And you're first overall. Like, imagine Ovechkin being a minus player. After scoring all the goals he scores, like
now Taylor Hall has career played with bad teams. He was on the bad Edmonton Oilers, the bad Arizona Coyotes, the bad New Jersey Devils. But even the New Jersey Devils, when he was there, weren't that bad because he had a 98-point season and won the Hart Trophy. So he was good enough, and the team was good enough to have him do that.
Yeah, 98-point season, and he wins the Hart Trophy, and this guy's a career minus.
Yeah.
How does that happen, dude?
I don't know. But the Boston Bruins have had a lot of defensive injuries. I mean, if you scroll down and look at their injuries, you've got Brandon Carlo, John Moore, Matt Grzelcyk all out. And that's half their defensive core right there. So that's why they went and got Mike Riley from the Senators. You know, Jeremy Lauzon on the first line, like, that's not what you want. I don't even know who Steve Kampfer is.
It sounds, and from the looks on both of your faces, it sounds like they're patching holes.
Yes.
But they're patching holes with whatever they can find.
Boston is definitely patching holes because they haven't been satisfied with Jake DeBrusk. Charlie Coyle has fallen off since they acquired him. Their fourth line is fine. Nick Ritchie's a disappointment. David Krejci is falling off. Craig Smith is on their second line, who it might as well be Joe Thornton because he's that old. But then their first line is the best first line in the NHL because it's Marchand, Pasternak, Bergeron. So, you know, exactly.
It means nothing.
So the last trade that we'll break down before we get on to our teams here, and we'll try and speed things up a bit.
John Merrill going to Montreal. No.
Yeah. I mean, it was a trade.
I think it's one of those things that, like, you're like, well done, you've achieved so much. You're like, the rest of it's kind of pointless.
Yeah. So we'll look at that. But David Savard goes from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Tampa Bay Lightning. He, on his way, goes through the Detroit Red Wings so that the Red Wings can hold some cap for him before he goes to Tampa Bay so that the Lightning can fit him in. The Blue Jackets
we literally just get a free pick. It's great.
The Blue Jackets acquired Brian Lashoff. And is that it? They had to have got more. Yeah, okay, sorry. So the Lightning also acquired Brian Lashoff and David Savard. The Lightning gave up a 2021 first, a 2022 third, and a 2021 fourth for David Savard and Brian Lashoff. Now, Brian Lashoff going from Detroit to the Lightning as well. So similar kind of finagling that the Leafs did, where the third team gives up a player as well, but gets a pick and, you know, a little bit of cap, a little bit of extra cap goes to that third team as well.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Detroit just signed Lucas Raymond. So
very nice. That's
fantastic.
What you need to do.
Look at that.
A very good prospect for them. Actually, he's with my fantasy team as well. But
beautiful.
So the Lightning
16 minutes ago.
The Lightning are basically cheating at this point because, like, their core is nuts. They won the cup last year, and they're going for it again. Yes, Steven Stamkos is out of the lineup again, but it doesn't even matter because Braden Point is unreal.
Well, they also did it without him, you know, last year, right? Was it last year?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And he's out again, but it doesn't even matter. Their defensive core now is Hedman, Cernak, McDonough, Savard, Sergachev, and then Luke Shen. But who cares? Because it like Mikhail Sergachev has now been pushed to the third pair, which is stupid. Because like this is how good their team is now. They have arguably the best defensive core in the league. I mean, the only other team that's probably competing with them for that is the Carolina Hurricanes. But they traded a guy who's in their depth from the defensive, Hayden Fleury. They traded him away. So they actually lost defensive depth and quality, whereas Tampa Bay only added one of the arguably top 10, top 20 defense, probably top 10 defensive-minded defensemen in the league who can also put points on the board. It's stupid. So Tampa Bay is unreal. And, I mean, they win this trade, certainly in the short term. Columbus gets a couple more picks. I'm impressed with Columbus that they're selling because I think Jarmo Kekalainen figured out that they need to. I don't think John Tortorella's back next year. There's been whisperings that he's actively been coaching like this so that he doesn't go back. And even he's been trying to get fired, apparently. I don't personally believe that he's been trying to get fired, but that, maybe he's been coaching like this so that he doesn't come back next year. I can see that. But because of this, they're going to have a hell of a hard time signing Patrick Laine because he is not enjoying himself there, even less so than he enjoyed himself in Winnipeg, I'd say. So, but good on them for figuring out that they need to sell. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Sean.
Nope. Doing great.
Well done.
Okay, so yeah, so
I just saw an update. Charles Leclerc just totaled his car.
Nice.
That happened earlier this morning.
We'll get to that as well. So the Vancouver Canucks, we'll start there and then go through each of the teams. Now, the Vancouver Canucks couldn't really do a whole lot.
Am I doing this as well?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay.
Absolutely,
I did send you stuff to look at.
Yes, and I did read it.
Now
Toronto, A+.
Relax. Now the Vancouver Canucks have they didn't really have a whole lot of flexibility to do much of anything because of their massive COVID problems. And on top of that, they were supposed to start playing again today, which is insane that was even a goal because it's the variant that's gone through their team. And they had players step onto the ice for practice and they felt like they had concussions, like that they had post-concussion syndrome. And how can you actively sit there and say, yep, they're going to be back today after that's 10 days after they shut everything down?
Right. Well, I think it's just like a developing thing with these variants. The NHL, they haven't obviously gone through anything like this, and so like Vancouver's even reaching out to other teams because they don't understand how to go about this, but these other teams haven't had the variants either.
Right.
So when you have a variant come in that's way more not deadly, I don't want to say, because
well, it's contagious. It's more contagious and hits
right.
you
These
harder.
guys are sicker than these guys are sicker than I think any NHL player has been with COVID.
I think the thing is that I can only talk as someone who's, how I felt after the vaccination. And the vaccination obviously isn't COVID, but, dealing with a lot of people that have had COVID and dealing with the vaccinations, I don't think I could have played a sport after a vaccination for COVID because I felt like I've been worked over with a baseball bat. So these guys, after having COVID, trying to get back on the ice, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
Your immune system's going through something that
it's never seen before.
It takes a lot of energy out of you, man. Yeah, for sure.
So there's 6 Vancouver Canucks players still on the COVID list, I believe. And on top of that, I mean, you had TJ Miller come out and basically say, this is terrible. I feel horrendous.
Yeah.
And there's no way.
Hockey,
Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to be anywhere near peak performance. Probably in the next, again, another week or so. So if the Canucks can even finish this season, I think I would be surprised if they did. It's not going to be good. I mean, they're just going to get run over by healthy teams because they are still not healthy.
This is the whole thing that annoyed me that we dealt with in the NFL was that you're like, oh, well, if these two teams played healthy, then they'd be fine.
Right.
You basically go into a team, take away. I think with most teams, if you take away the starting 3, they are dramatically a worse team than they were. And it's
absolutely.
Like, are you really getting a fair game out of this? Are you getting what you need out of this? Because one team is effectively playing a weakened team. It's the long and the short of it. And the other team has 2 choices. They either put a bunch of guys out there, which are second line guys or development guys, and they get their asses handed to them, which is not good for their mentality because no one wants to step on an ice rink and get fucking scored on 6-0 because your goalie's going to have a bad day, your defensemen's are going to have a bad day, and your attackmen are also going to have a bad day. And it's just like, well, no one's happy in that situation. Everyone feels worse about themselves. And even your guys that are sat at home with COVID are feeling even worse about themselves because they have to watch their team lose because they can't be there. And it's just like, I don't understand at this point. We've gone through this now. We know what's going to happen. Why we haven't just thought, right, let's build in some time into this season. That's why there's things in the Formula One calendar. Like that's the purpose for this 3-week break we've had. It's not because they wanted to have a 3-week break. It's because they were like, let's build ourselves in some time so that if we have to suddenly move a race up or if we have to push a race back or switch everything around, then we can. It doesn't take much. It just takes, okay, this is going to be a difficult season for everyone. This is going to be difficult to plan and deal with. Let's not let teams, just get absolutely trashed. Let's try and at least make it a mild amount of fair, at least.
Well, and the NHL has left a bit of a barrier at the end of the season. There's a week in May where there's going to be a week kind of before the playoffs where teams can catch up on games. But I don't even think that week is going to be enough for Vancouver.
A week, dude? They're already 9
they're already
games behind?
Yeah, they're already 6 or 7 games behind, I think, which is a full
That's
week.
insane.
So
but coming back from COVID, could you imagine that? You're like, all right, guys, so 1 week you're gonna just play a game every day.
Night. Yeah.
I mean,
for me, I understand the NHL, trying to be optimistic, trying to hopefully get them back, trying to whatever. I just think that they should shut it down. I think they probably will shut it down because I don't know what else you can do at this point.
I think the smartest thing for them is one, trying to get players back on the field after COVID is just it's gonna suck for everyone involved because the players aren't gonna feel good. The athletic staff are gonna be frustrated. It's just gonna be hot garbage. Maybe the best thing for that team is them to turn around to the NHL and go, look, we can have a losing season where all of our guys get fucked, or, you know, we will just not play the rest of this season. We'll forfeit, and okay, we still, you know, let us retain our picks or something like that. Or, you know, just this is not going to be good for us. Because all I see happening, to be honest, is if you put a player on the ice that's recovering from COVID and he's not fully recovered, because even guys like Lewis Hamilton were asked after, you know, he had COVID, and, you know, these guys are some of the best athletes in the world. He was like, do you feel 100%? He was like, no, I haven't felt 100% for like 6, 7, 8 weeks after. That's how long it takes to fully recover. So a guy's going to be 6 weeks recovered, take a hit, and now he's in an intensive care unit in a hospital because he's trying to recover from COVID and whatever the fuck else has happened to him, and everyone looks like a dumbass.
Well, the other question, too, is what happens with the lottery, too. So if Vancouver ends up near the bottom, like they're bottom 3 by the end of the season, and the NHL goes, okay, no, you're not gonna play any more games. You're done. That's it. What happens then? Because do you put them where they were at right now? Do you just say, like, screw it, since they're in 6th place, 5th place, or something like that? Do you just say, no, you end the season 5th place no matter what? Even if a team is worse than them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know. Or if they're worse than other teams, like, what do you do then?
I think what you need to do is the Canucks should just shut down, and then however many games were left, you redistribute those games that were supposed to be against the Canucks against other teams in the division, and wrap it up there.
That's a way to do it for the other teams, but
so I don't think we can give the Canucks any kind of letter grade, because that just wouldn't be fair. Their only trade was getting rid of Adam Gaudette, who they had been a little disappointed with. They thought that they were going to make a step. What I don't understand is general manager Jim Benning coming out and saying, "Oh, we're not going to have cap trouble this offseason," which is shocking.
Madison Bowie
to me. Yeah, they got Madison Bowie, which is fine. Right. I can't fathom how Jim Benning thinks they're not going to have cap trouble this year. Even with the trades that have gone through, their projected cap hit is over $85 million, which is last I checked, $4 million over the $81 million cap limit.
Maybe that's their mulligan then.
I guess. I mean, they do
have $4.5 million on the LTIR.
They do, which is where they're getting the relief from. But they've got to re-sign Brandon Sutter if they want. Jimmy Vesey is up if they want him. I don't know, because they claimed him off waivers from the Maple Leafs. And then, you know, are you going to bring him back? He's $900K. So then what? You've got Jace Howerluck that you have to sign as an RFA, and he's good. He's arbitration eligible as well. Travis Boyd's the other guy they claimed off waivers from the Maple Leafs for $700,000. And then they've got to re-sign Alex Edler if they want him. Quinn Hughes is up this year. Travis Hamonic, among other guys. And then where is he? So Michael Furland comes back. Jay Beagle is back another year. And they have to sign Elias Pettersson, which no one is talking about. That kid's going to want $10 million. I at least guarantee you he's going to want $10 million.
Because
where are you getting this cap space from?
maybe that's their mulligan. Maybe you turn around to them and go, right, oh my God, you're not going to be able to really play for the rest of the season, and if you do, you're going to be putting players at risk.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to get rid of. They're going to have to get rid of a few guys.
Yeah,
it was me.
They have to.
Yeah, if it was me, I would turn around and say, right, we forfeit our first round. If we're not going to play the rest of the season, we forfeit our first round pick. But you give us an extra $10 million in cap space for the next year to recover.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No, I know.
The NHL would never do that. Because then other teams are going to ask for stuff like that, and that's just not going to work. The Calgary Flames were sellers, which makes sense because
Sam Bennett.
Yeah, they got rid of Sam Bennett, David Riddick, a couple other guys are gone.
Playing with his orange backed gear with the Leafs.
Yeah,
the same,
pretty funny.
same day he flew over. That's funny.
I think what's going to happen with Calgary is Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau are gone this offseason, and they're going to start to rebuild because that's what needs to happen. Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau have been a part of this core for a long time, and it's just not working out. So, you know what? I would give the Calgary Flames a B+ because the rebuild has started based on the trades they made. They recouped picks and assets for what they traded away. Arguably, they got a better haul for Sam Bennett than the Buffalo Sabres did for Taylor Hall, which is insane.
Oh, yeah.
And then they got a 3rd-round pick for David Riddick from the Leafs. So you're getting assets and picks back. So I give them a B+ because I think you probably could have done a little bit more to kickstart the rebuild. Maybe, maybe you could have sold one of Johnny Gaudreau or Sean Monahan and got a pretty big haul. But maybe not. So I give them a B+, and I hope that's what they start to do because it just hasn't worked out in Calgary at all.
Do we just skip over the Ottawa Senators?
No, we could talk about them,
like
but we're moving from west to east. So now we have the Edmonton Oilers.
I see what you're doing.
But could we speed this up because we're almost 2 hours on hockey at the moment?
Yeah.
We need to talk about Formula One as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm gonna have to piece.
Before
that.
Yeah, because he has to go help his ex move her.
I gotta go help.
Tell her to move her. Tell her to pack her own stuff.
I'm gonna pack you.
Sounds good.
So you guys are gonna talk about F1. I have nothing to input anyway, and then you can figure out.
I guess
these drivers for.
How
next
about
week.
this? We'll pitch you our drivers on the podcast. Then you have to listen,
and then I'll watch it. Okay, sounds good. That's great.
And then you'll report back to us next week as to who you decided to cheer for or whatever. Anyways, Edmonton.
Charles Leclerc for sure.
I give Edmonton a D-. I don't give them an F completely, but I give Edmonton a D- because
just for trade, right?
For trading, because you didn't do anything. Like what are you thinking here?
Kenny Holland, man, listen,
you
don't
have
need to make big trades every year.
You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and on top of this, Oscar Klefbom is on LTIR. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is out of the lineup for at least a little while because he's on the IR. So now you have had to split up Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl because now that's your 1-2 punch down the middle. Neither of them are playing as well as they used to be because together they are world beaters. And now the team's not doing as well because you don't have your 2 best guys together. They squeaked out a win against Montreal, but Montreal looked like the better team in that game, to be honest. Oscar Klefbom's out for the rest of the season. Slater Cuckoo's probably out for the rest of the season as well. But I don't like you gotta get creative, man. You gotta get good players on your team.
Haas, Yamamoto on the second line. That's
like Yamamoto is a very good prospect, and he is going to do very well for the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah,
Haas,
that's
okay,
fine, but
okay. So they moved Leon Draisaitl back up to the first line. Gaetan Haas is your second line center right now, man. Dominic Cahoon is on your second line wing. Tyler Ennis isn't even in the lineup right now because I guess he's hurt.
God, they need Nuge back.
Like,
I really need Nuge back.
Go get some. You're battling for second in the Canadian division to make the playoffs and get home ice advantage against likely the Winnipeg Jets. Go get someone, man. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Kenny Holland's just like he's running the marathon. He's not looking to do any sprints anytime soon. Just doesn't think it's worth it. And I mean, I kind of don't blame him for that because like the Oilers aren't in any position, even with their best players all ready to go to go for a cup. And like you can get the playoffs, you can play a round or maybe two, maybe. But other than that, whatever. And he knows it. And I mean that's kind of Kenny. He's been doing that with the Wings. You know what I mean? You get the first round, you give your fans hope, and oh, they lost. Oh no. Well, at least we made the playoffs, so better luck next year. Gives you a little bit of.
Yeah, but you've got Alex Chason, who's up. This Gaten Haas kid is up. He's a RFA. No, he's a UFA. Sorry. Yamamoto's an RFA. Devin Shore, RFA. Jujar Kara, RFA. Dominic Cahoon, RFA. Adam Larson's a UFA. Tyson Berry's going to want a massive raise. He's probably going to want like $6 million based on the seasons he's had. He's a UFA. Dmitry Kulikov, who they just got, is a UFA. Like that's all you got. You got Dmitry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of off-season stuff.
And Mike Smith is up again, who's been the only goaltender who's been good for them because Mikko Koskinen is not worth $4.5 million.
Right.
And
okay, so
like, are you going to re-sign 40-year-old Mike Smith again for next year? Like, come on, man. You got to get creative and do something interesting.
Okay, so they get a fucking F. So F them.
F them and move on to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Who I think Winnipeg could have done a little bit more. So I'm going to give them a C because I think they could have done a little bit more, but they did address an issue, which is on defense. They got Jordy Ben from Vancouver. Okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And Kevin Cheveldayoff is kind of like that. He makes a trade and you go, okay, that's fine. You know, it wasn't world beating or mind blowing. They kind of made their mind blowing trade when they got Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Correct.
So, you know, I give him a C. Connor Hellebuck is a top 5 goaltender in the league. You get Jordy Ben on defense, who gives you a little bit more depth, but you've kind of got a bunch of top 6 defensemen who are playing in the top 4, which is meh. But they got screwed over the last couple of years anyways. So, you know, C. You like a C?
Yeah, that's good. And then we talked about Toronto. So, I mean, that's A+. Good for them. They're going for the cup. So, I mean, you can't not make trades like that. You have to go all in or you're not gonna get one. And I think this is the year that honestly, like, they could. And if they do, it's going to be a lot of excuses from the other fans in the league saying, oh, it's COVID, and Vancouver was out for the last bit. And
literally
excuses about how it doesn't count. But
literally,
like, listen,
every single Leaf fan is not.
Fan,
yeah,
every single hope that Toronto wins the cup. So
every single one of them is not going to care because,
of course,
they have.
I won't care.
Now, right?
No, I mean, like, absolutely. Wings fan to Leafs fan. I really hope Toronto wins.
Yeah, they shored up. You know, they got Antti Suomela from the San Jose Sharks, who is like another depth centerman, because they're trying to improve their center depth. They addressed
3 great goalies now.
Yep, they addressed defensive depth and they addressed goaltending depth because now, I mean, when Frederik Andersen comes back, they've got 4 goaltenders, right? Because you've got Anderson, Riddick, Campbell, and Hutchinson.
Wow,
Hutchinson you want as your 4th goalie, but even he's had a decent enough season this year. So, you know, yeah, and they've also got Riley Nash, who's going to play for them probably in the playoffs at some point. So,
which is great.
This is a problem that the Leafs have not had in a long time. Is who do you sit out? Because they've got so many players.
Last 4 minutes, bench him. Fuck it. We don't need him. He doesn't do anything.
Well, you know, you got to get the stars out there like Big Jumbo Joe and Spezza, right? You got to get those guys out there. Actually, no, not Spezza, because I don't like him because I scratched him for the home opener against his former team.
Imagine benching a clutch player. Like, literally, Matthews, anytime I watch him play, it's like always making clutch plays.
The mind of Mike Babcock. We both know it.
He's coaching a university now. So.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to ruin those poor U Sport players. Right, so we give Toronto. I give them an A. You give them an A+. That's
I'll
fine.
give him an A+ for sure. Yeah, I think Dubas is doing a fantastic job with that team. And
The Ottawa Senators. Now we know they're sellers. We know they're not doing well. And what did they do? They sold and they got picks. They got a third for Mike Riley, which is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you have to.
Yeah, I cannot believe the Boston Bruins gave up a 3rd round pick for Mike Riley.
Right.
Like, that's insane. You got a 7th round pick for Braden Coburn, which I think you could have got more for Braden Coburn and less for Mike Riley, but I guess they kind of like make up for it.
Either way,
right?
Should we just? I think at this point we're just gonna have to do our Formula One picks and then kind of catch up on it next week, because we're at over 2 hours now. So I think
there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. So let's just do our Formula One picks, just so that.
Like, I'm gonna have to go because I gotta. Yeah, I definitely gotta go.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, pick your teams. Anyways, Ottawa, I give them a C+. That's fine.
C-.
I don't understand what Montreal's doing.
C-. We don't Montreal. Montreal. Take John Merrill. Enjoy him. He did a couple things while he was with us. Like, proud of you guys. Other than that, does Marc Bergevin think he's gonna contend for a cup with this team? I really hope not. I mean, like there was a little bit of hope mid-season there, but I think
they had a flaming start to the year. But
no way.
I think this is Marc Bergevin thinking that his time as GM is probably done and just going, I will sell the farm and get everyone to play on this team.
Yeah, because, I mean, we'll see how today goes against the Flames, but I don't think Montreal's in a position to make a cup run.
You've got a team with a bunch of career 3rd, maybe 2nd liners.
I mean, at least they got Tater. They got Suzuki.
Tatar?
Tater. Gallagher. Listen, he played for us. You know, he's Tater.
They're good players, but
or tartar sauce.
Tartar sauce. They're good players, but they're 2nd line guys on any decent team.
They just need to do something. Put Perry in like a closet somewhere and just lock the door.
Well, he's been good. He's been good. He had 2 goals against the Leafs.
He's just the most annoying player, I think, in the league at this point, aside from like Marchand. And you're just like, God.
Yeah, I don't know. I give Montreal like a C- because I don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I'd say Montreal and like Ottawa are kind of pretty close.
Yeah,
in terms
I don't really know what's going
garbage.
on. Anyways, okay. Do you want to mention Edelman retiring, Gavin? Or are we just going with the picks and moving on?
I think we need to like do the picks and then end the pot. Like, I think Sean, if you can stay for like 6 minutes.
He just saluted.
I have to go. I have to leave.
Just pick 3 Formula One drivers off the top of your head and write them down on a piece of paper.
Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's the right order you want? Verstappen.
Okay. I'm going Hamilton, Charles, Norris.
You always do that, and it never pays off.
Okay, I saw. All right. So I'm choosing well.
I'm going Hamilton, Verstappen, Ricardo.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about this more next week because I think this has been there's a lot going on in hockey at the moment. So
it was a big week. It was a big day.
So we can get me more into F1 next week.
Yeah. Right. We wish better luck next week to all the losers, which include the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens, and the Edmonton Oilers specifically. We also hope that Sean enjoys the Grand Prix this weekend. What is it? Emilia?
It's a weird
one.
Tamale.
So the circuit is called Imola, but they've renamed it Automobilidrome di Dino Ferrari.
Oh, I see. Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari.
Yeah. So it's across the road from the Ferrari factory, pretty much.
It's the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. We'll leave it at that. It's on Sunday, as always.
The Ferrari the Emilia effect is in full force with Ferrari, but we'll leave that till next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, everyone.
I gotta poop.